few minutes late. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
no
no
problem.
All good, no worries. All right, so Austin, you want to record there? Let me know when you
Yeah,
have.
it's all set.
Where are
All
you
good
guys?
to go?
Are you in Van or somewhere else?
Chilliwack.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just a little bit out.
All right, so get this going here. Hey guys, how's it going? The Hockey Hour podcast is live here on Zoom, which we've been using to record lately because of this pandemic, of course. This one's a special one. We're joined today by Sportsnet 650's Andrew Walker. It's a privilege to have you on the show. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to join us. Appreciate it.
No problem, guys. Happy to be with you.
Awesome. So we'll do a little introduction. I'm sure everyone knows who Andrew Walker is, but for those watching, he hosts the program every Monday to Friday from 7 p.m. on Sportsnet 650, as well as the Canucks postgame show, which is great to listen to for all us Canucks fans. We're going through a tough time right now, of course. It's been pretty difficult.
Yeah, it's kind of a vent session these days, isn't it?
Oh, totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, I listened last night because I was very frustrated, and it's good to listen. So before we start our questions here, basically, I want your thoughts, like in a nutshell, like 1 or 2 words. How would you describe the team right now, basically, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, the last game notwithstanding, because the bar is pretty low. I think they played pretty well the first 2 periods, but I would say when I watch this group, they look broken is one word that comes to mind. And broken and helpless, I guess, right? Like, I think everyone's like, oh, they're quitting and they're quitting on the GM and all that stuff. I don't buy that. I think that they've had moments where they're probably pissed off about the off season, but I think that they're professionals. They want to win, right? Like, no one likes losing, and
No.
they're good enough that they should be better. So they're helpless right now. That's kind of the feeling that I take anyway.
Yeah, I agree. My word is abysmal. That's what I would use.
That
Abysmal.
fits.
That
Yeah,
works
that fits.
too. So we'll start with the first question here. Before we begin, though, I don't want this to be like an interview. I want it to be more of a discussion type thing.
Sure.
But despite COVID measures, like, is it possible for a team to look this bad unless there's like a clear disconnect between the coach and GM with the players? Is there any other explanations besides that? And an example of that is like Braden Holtby, the Saturday game versus Toronto. He gets mad at Miller on the ice, and then Green post game played off casually, of course. But Miller's like a leader in the room, kind of like an alpha in the room, and kind of reminds me of Kessler with his personality. He wants to win, and he gets kind of grumpy when he doesn't. Like, how do you handle the effort level of JT Miller and other players at this point? And is this a prime example of the disconnect with the team right now?
I think that it's a perfect sequence or imperfect sequence of events, and I just think this has been a nightmare.
Yeah.
Right. Like, this is not a team that's in a full blown rebuild. This is not it's not the Red Wings. It's not the Senators. We can argue how good the team is, right? You can say, oh, they lost some pieces in the offseason, but let's face it. Like, 6 months ago, the bulk of this team was doing awesome in the playoffs, right?
100%.
And so when things start going south, it's just frustrating. And I think it's human nature to start getting on each other and, hey, you didn't back check here and you didn't make that save there, and the power play didn't score, the penalty kill didn't score, or the penalty kill didn't kill off that penalty. I think it's natural the infighting starts, because, like, I think it's anything. It's if you're playing on your rec hockey team, you're playing high school sports, it's one thing to lose, but when you're getting embarrassed, like, that's just no fun for anybody. So I don't think that, like, Holtby calls out Miller and I think it's chicken before egg. They're not playing. Yeah. They're not playing well. It's not because they're all fighting. I think they're all fighting because they're not playing well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And I mean, realistically, we do have a sense to be a little bit impatient. Our market's not the most patient in hockey. I mean, even I try to be patient, and that's being hard right now. So it's definitely, everyone wants to point the finger. We all want to have someone or an answer to what's wrong. And like you said, it's kind of a chicken before the egg sequence right now.
You want the smoking gun, right? You want to be able to see, like, and it's tricky because people are like, well, it's, Louis Eriksson, and you go back to that, and it's like, man, like, listen, that's bad money and that's a bad contract, but we've known about that for years.
Yeah,
they went to, they almost went to the conference final last year, and Louis Eriksson was a thing. They're not losing these games because of Louis Eriksson. Like, that hurts the franchise in the long term, but it's not that smoking gun, right? Everyone wants that. Everyone wants the smoking gun, and this is exactly why they're struggling. And the truth is, like, none of us have the answers to that. They're losing games. They're losing games really badly, and they're losing games really badly to players they let go that because of the pandemic they're playing every freaking night. And not only that, you're not losing to Florida. You're losing to the Leafs. You're losing to the Flames. You're losing to these fan bases that are going to give you a hard time on Twitter after the game. It sucks. And you know what? Like, it was going to happen to somebody when we were doing the season previews. It was like, you know what? I said, I feel bad for the one market because the Ottawa's out. We know that. But there's 6 other teams, and all these other teams feel they should be in the playoffs. And one of these 2 of the teams are going to miss, and one of them is going to miss and hate life. And then you wake up and you're like, oh God, it's us. It's Vancouver.
And it sucks because we're supposed to be taking a step ahead this season. Like, we're supposed to be, like, even the management's like, we don't care what happened in the offseason. We lost Markstrom. We want to make the playoffs. We want to improve. And now we're seeing this. And it's like, we were set up for, an improvement this season and to continue with success in the bubble. And now it's like worse than last season before the bubble.
Well, I think even for you guys as fans, like, I think you guys are smart enough to be like, okay, listen, we're not playing well. If you don't get off to a good start, you're done anyway. It's 56 games. We can't go to the rink. It's 1 year chopped off of Eriksson and Beagle and Roussel and whatever. It's not the end of the world if the Canucks aren't like the best team in the world this year. Not the end of the world. We'll get them next year. I think that's fair. But with the way this is going, I think the worry for a lot of people is like, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice this year, but this is so bad. Like, what if Miller doesn't want to be here? What if Hughes, isn't that good? What if Pettersson is like a really good 2 center? I don't think those things are true, but like right now, all bets are off because they look so bad. They look so bad.
Yeah. And there's a lot of criticism going towards a guy like Nate Schmidt, and my buddy Dylan, who's on the podcast, isn't liking him. But I don't think it's fair to single out one guy on the team when everyone looks bad right now.
Yeah, Schmidt's a good player.
That's what I think so too.
Schmidt's a good player, and for whatever reason, like, it hasn't worked with the team. Yeah.
Hasn't the chemistry's off.
Yeah, and to your point of like, as much as you don't want to see this play out this way, losing this season isn't the worst thing for the organization. And that's why I've always said I kind of defend Benning up until this offseason. Like, this next offseason is your time because you have to settle these contracts with these players you drafted. You've got to prove that you can do this and put us in the right direction, make these offseason moves that will make next year, when we have a little bit of normality, kind of competitive again.
Yeah, and you're more understanding than most, because I think a lot of people will be like, hey, like, your last chance was this off season, and whether you did the right moves or not, it's not working on the ice. And I'll be damned if you're going to be the guy to try to fix this, or you're going to be the guy to negotiate those contracts with Hughes and Pettersson. I don't think this is about, hey, let's fire Benning today, but I think it's just like, it's just obvious that it's not going to be his team,
It's becoming more and more obvious. Yeah. And I'm a big Benning fan, to be honest. I've always supported him. I've always really
That's my
him.
thing. I'm like, you know what? I just trust the resume. And as much as we hate things, because hindsight's 2020, especially with GMs, I just, I don't know. I guess I see the trees between the forest somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I can find a little bit of reason.
But I think generally, the answer is usually on this stuff somewhere in the middle. Like, is he the worst GM in the history of hockey? Some people would tell you he is. He's not. He's done some good moves. He's done some bad moves, right? And I think we can romanticize former GMs. Like, even, man, people had signs in the arena to fire Gillis, and it doesn't take very long. People are like, hey, maybe we should bring Gillis back, right? Like, people forget. So
totally, that's a good point. So we'll head off to the next topic here, and that's the Hockey Night Canada panel Saturday night made a really good point. I think it was Friedman. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he said when the team's in a major rut, usually they go out as a group and do something fun. Like, they go to the Rocks or something back in the day in Vancouver. And they simply can't right now because of the pandemic. How do you navigate that in a season like this?
It's tricky because the Caps tried to do that earlier, and like no big deal. They tried to play cards in a hotel room, and they all got suspended. They all got suspended for 4 games, right? All the Russians. I'm a believer in that. Like old school, I think that, you know, same with you and your buddies or your rec hockey team or your place of work, whatever. I think it's important to blow off steam. I think it's important to, you know, kind of come together as a family unit and understand each other and all that kind of stuff, right? Because you gotta, to have success in this league, I don't care if you have Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews or whatever, you got to be playing for the guy sitting beside you in the stall, right?
Yeah.
And over time, I think you eventually, you know, get to know these guys, but that's just hockey. I can't explain it, but you're right. Like these guys need to be on a road trip in New York with 2 days off, and they're all going out together. When you hear about the teams that like go deep in the playoffs and that stuff, like more often than not, teams that win a cup or get to a final, they'll all be like, oh man, that group was so tight, right? Like we did everything together. One guy went out on the road. We all went out on the road. And that's lost right now. And like you lose these games and you get embarrassed. So let's say you got embarrassed in Toronto. And then what do? You go back to your hotel. You can't hang out with the guys.
Exactly.
You sit there, you stew over the loss. Yeah. And guess what? You're going back out 24 hours later to get your ass kicked again. That's tough. That's hard.
Mentally, it'd be very difficult. Like, that's what I mean. Like, people need to realize it's different from every other year. Plus, you can't, as Green said, they've had like 1 or 2 practices in the last like week or so.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how do you can't navigate through it.
And it's their own fault, right? Like they're playing poorly and that leads to another thing and they get frustrated and all of a sudden you're behind the 8 ball and there's no outlet and so it's a snowball. Then you have no confidence and one thing leads to another. They put themselves in this situation, but yeah, it's not ideal, and I can understand it'd be tough to get out of.
Oh, totally. Austin, you want to touch on that, or?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I completely agree. It's just kind of like you said, not having that ability to blow off steam. The locker room that's in a situation like that is kind of like us. They want a scapegoat. They want someone to point at too. So you have a little bit of animosity within the locker room that doesn't help either, and being, you know, tucked up in a bubble is not helping whatsoever.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry.
No worries. Okay, so do you think that Tyler Myers or even Nate Schmidt deserve to be scratched going forward? And are their salaries and the optics of those salaries keeping them in the lineup at the moment?
No. I think that Schmidt has struggled at times, and I think Myers is a big ticket, but they're your second and third best defenseman and they play over 20 minutes every night, right? I think not just this market. I think a lot of markets. I think we lose the plot when we confuse bad players with bad contracts, right? Okay. And everyone, even the Myers stuff. Like I'll defend Myers. Everyone likes like, oh, Jim Benning's bad track record is look at all the bad money, and I'll tell you, I don't think Tyler Myers is bad money. I don't put him in that category. He's not perfect.
No.
And sure, maybe it's a year too long and $1 million too long, whatever. That's free agency. Like Ericsson's bad money. Sven Baertschi, bad money. Michael Furlan, bad money. Tyler Myers isn't perfect, but I do not put him in that bad money category. But he is the whipping boy, no doubt. But everyone's struggled for sure. And whatever it is about Myers, I think he's, you know, he makes a mistake and people love to jump on him. And we look the other way when Quinn Hughes makes a mistake. But no, Myers and Schmidt, that's just, if you scratch one of those guys, you're just voluntarily making your team worse, right? So. And
even the thing last year, like I've always liked Schmidt. I keep saying like give the guy a chance. He's on a team that's struggling right now. It's not fair to blame him. But last year, Myers, analytically, he was our best defenseman actually. And I don't really go by analytics, but that's what the analytics said.
Yeah, Canucks aren't where, and I know that the season ended shortly and they were like 1 point up or 1 point down in the playoffs, but the Canucks aren't in the position that they were without Tyler Myers. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
Even the bubble proved that.
He's not perfect, but they needed a defenseman and then they went out and they signed him. Now it's a big ticket. Absolutely. But I mean, he makes the team better.
You're not going to get a perfect contract in free agency. It just won't happen.
No.
Go ahead,
And I
Austin.
guess my thing is I agree with most of that. My only thing about Schmidt is seeing him struggle so much, even though we've paired him with almost everyone we've been able to in the lineup, and then seeing somebody like Ulevi, who I have praised for a long time, and I just want to see him play, especially when I see him help Myers play his best game, and then we're able to actually have a cohesive unit on defense for once. So the only reason I would say that is maybe about Schmidt, just because I'm sick of seeing Olevi get cut, but that's more about him, not about Schmidt's bad play.
Yeah, and if that guy's going to get in, I mean, you're looking at an injury, you're looking at Chatfield, but yeah, I mean, we can talk about things that we'd like to see happen in our perfect world, but bottom line is Hughes, Schmidt, and Myers are not getting scratched.
Fair enough. Good input. I like that. I don't see them getting scratched either. Personally, I've never disliked Myers. Even last year, I liked him too. It's been a struggle, but so was the entire team at this point. Honestly,
it's really tough to analyze right now because it's really tough to pick out like, oh, this guy's been really good. Yeah. You know, like who are we talking about? Hoglander, Mott. You know, guys that just bring it every night. Like that's about it. Quinn Hughes has a ton of points and is minus $1 trillion, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
literally.
I saw some Hughes hate this morning, and it kind of pissed me off a little bit. Not gonna lie, because it's like, really, you're turning on Hughes now? Like, come on.
Yeah.
You know. So I heard the other day, I know Vertanen's kind of been on the market for a bit now, which is no surprise, but I heard Gaudette's name the other day, and I'm going, what? Like, I'm shocked by that. Like, why do you think that Benning would even consider trading him? And do you think he's lost confidence in Gaudette, who's supposed to be your future third line center, basically?
I don't think it's about losing confidence. I just think there's a bit of a disconnect to what he is, right? I mean, he's not Pettersson and Horvat, and this organization would love for Gaudette to be their third line center, but you gotta be able to handle your own defensively. There, guys. Can we pause this? I forgot I got to do this other interview in Toronto, and I'll come back to you guys.
No problem.
Okay, can I reconnect like 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
No worries. Are you good?
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, but you guys were asking about Gaudette. So he's not Horvat and Pettersson, right? So he has to be your third line center, and the Canucks would love him to be the third line center, but you know, you got to do certain things to be an elite third line center, including matchup roles and things like that. And he's not there yet. Right. So if he is a tweener, which happens in the NHL, then he's trade bait. It's not about giving up on a guy, but if to be successful, if his role has to be where Pettersson and Horvat is, well, then there's nowhere for him to play.
Well,
right. So.
Well, you mean Pettersson Horvat, but I'm talking like a shutdown role as a third line center, like what Manny Malhotra used to do, for example. And the way I see it is right now, he's 100, like he's not a big guy, and if you're playing a team in the playoffs like Vegas, you're not gonna produce very well if you're a smaller guy who weighs 170 pounds and you're trying to shut down these bigger teams, right? That's the issue I see in him.
Right, and people are like, oh, like have 3 scoring lines. Well, that's fine. But like you can't trade 2 chances to get 1. You know, there's just no way to win.
100%. And like you said, you want to have someone who's shut down, kind of like a Malhotra, but he just doesn't have that real defensive mindset, and that's what makes those guys able to sit in a third line role and just play shutdown. They don't have to have the body to really go out there and hit people or make that presence, because they just play defensive and they don't leave opportunity out there. Because
he's a skilled guy and he's a one-shot scorer. So ideally, in a perfect world, you'd be like, all right, we like Adam Gaudette, we like his skill, so we're going to find the best matchups for him and try to get him some soft minutes and let him carry the play offensively. But like you have Pettersson and you have Horvat, like you're not gonna like your number one priority is not going to be Adam Gaudette's soft minutes. You got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, and then you have a guy like Sutter who comes out and does what you still need him to do as a third line center at this point, in my opinion. Like, and the thing with him is he does create those offensive opportunities at times that trade out for Gaudette because he's able to win faceoffs and just play the shutdown when he needs it.
I know everybody wants to stand for the young guys, right? You always want to see the young guys, and you know, the way this team is constructed, and right now it's, you know, it's tough to have any hard opinions on this club because they've been playing so poorly. But the way this team is constructed, it's just, you know, Sutter gives him a better chance to win as the third line center than Gaudette does. I know people don't want to admit it, but it's just true right now.
So what's his value then? Is he even worth trading away, in my opinion? Because his value is not that high right now. I can't be.
No. No one's coming calling for, like, you know, they're not going to give you a ton for Gaudette. When I say he's trade bait, I just mean that, you know, he's available. He's not untouchable, right? He's a guy that if someone gave you decent value for, you could probably do it. It doesn't mean imminent, but what's he doing for this team in the long term? Yeah. Are you bullish that he's gonna figure it out? He's gonna be a two-way center, our third line center? Probably not. You know,
I want to give him more time. I think it's too early to say that so far. He's only 24 years old, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know. I kind of agree. I feel like my thing was that Benning's calling, you know, asking to see what teams are thinking about Virtanen, and then his next option is, what about Gaudette? You know, that's just kind of the reality of what we have for assets right now to move.
I think Gaudette would look really good, like on a Detroit or an Ottawa, right? Where they're like, yeah, man, like go play power play one. But it's just like, it's not going to happen here.
Do you think there's any way you do a Bennett and Gaudette deal somehow?
I wouldn't do that.
I just thought about that. I don't know. Like,
I wouldn't. No way.
I do Gaudette for Bennett. I would do Gaudette for Bennett.
Like, because I just, like, same thing. Like, what is he doing for us as an asset right now? And do you bring someone like Bennett in who's looking for a new opportunity that you don't have to wait that 14-day period? You get him right in the lineup and you just see what happens. Because at this point, we just need something infused into the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, is it doable? Probably not. But I would do it. I would do it because I think Sam Bennett could be the third line center of this hockey team.
Don't you? I don't know. I just think Gaudette's got a higher upside personally.
No, more points, right? But again, is he ever going to be in that situation to score points? You know?
No. Yeah, fair.
I don't know. Like, I'd be more interested. Could Gaudette play a second line wing spot eventually?
Yeah.
On the wing, you see him more as a winger eventually.
Well, I mean, listen, if he's not going to play top six center.
Yeah.
Right. But could he play top six winger? But again, you can't get married to guys because guess who's coming? Pod Colson's coming.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's true.
100%.
I just don't like the idea of trading a guy who's young while his value isn't as good as it can be.
Yeah. And he ain't that young.
No, that's true.
24 is not that young anymore.
That's fair. That's fair. But still, I mean, it's not, most guys' prime is in their like 27, 28 is what I'm saying. So that's all. So basically last night versus the Leafs, I kind of noticed for the first 40 minutes, we actually played a pretty good hockey game, like pretty structured, very defensive. And I was like, wow. But then the third period went away. Was that because, for one, the Leafs woke up? And two, how come we don't play like that more often? Why is it so inconsistent? Because we can play that way. We're capable of it.
I think this team has a lot of skill. Like, even now they score goals. That's not the issue, right? Yeah. I think they got this idea that, hey, if we get a couple big saves, we can win every game 5-4, 5-3. Like that's our style. Let's play to it. And it was backfiring. And all of a sudden they're losing 6-3. They're losing 7-3. So, you know, they really tried to commit to that to the first two periods. Now, I want to give some credit to the Canucks, but I don't think the Leafs gave a shit. Like, right? Yeah. They just thought it was going to be easy. And they sleptwalked through the game. And the Canucks took advantage, right? The Canucks are the better team. Freddie Anderson saved their bacon. But right now they're so fragile. So they're playing a great game. It's 1-1. Anderson makes big saves. And then in the third period, probably Sheldon Keefe yelled at his guys, you know, to wake the F up kind of thing. And Leafs came out and played like they could. And you know, Matthews and Marner are superstars, right? Like, they're going to get their chances. And Matthews scores the goal. But it's okay to me. Like, it's still a big hockey game, or it's still a game. There's lots of time left, and then 11 seconds later, Hughes just gives away the puck behind the net, and bang, it's 3-1, and it's game over. right? So I think they're fragile right now. So when something bad happens, you're like, uh-oh, like how many more bad things are going to happen? And in this case, it was just the one, but it was enough, you know?
Mm-hmm. So in saying that, like the first 40 minutes, we looked like probably the best we've looked almost all year. Can we be even better than that? Because we need to be better than that to beat these teams, basically.
Well, I mean, for this series against Calgary, like at the very least, the coaching staff, and they get to practice for a couple of days, but at least the coaching staff is like, hey, like you did it, right? Like I know we lost, but like those 2 periods, like there it is. Like there's some confidence. We got to do that against Calgary.
Have to.
Yeah, and hopefully they can. Maybe they can. Like I don't know. I don't have a great feeling heading into this week.
I don't either.
I don't have a great feeling, but like I still believe that, like, I'm not saying they're going to make playoffs or anything like that, but like it's a group of like professional players that we've seen really good things from. I think they're totally. I'd be very surprised if they got their doors blown off by Calgary this week. I mean, maybe I wouldn't, right? Because maybe it's just like maybe I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. I think it would still surprise me more if they did than if they did.
Yeah, it's just like, Austin, you want to say something there? Or?
Oh no, I mean, I think we just start by doing it for 60 minutes, and that's what you need to do to play against this Calgary and the Montreal style teams. Like that's the one thing I've said. Even if they don't have the most talented lineup, like they're just going to pound you down for 60 minutes. So you got to be able to keep up with them.
And maybe, I mean, a lot of this is on the Canucks, but maybe Toronto and Montreal, like, I don't know, maybe they're 2 of the best teams in the league this year. That could be a thing too.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the Canadian division does make them look a little better right now, like especially Montreal. Montreal's good, but I think the optics of the Canadian division are making them look better than they are.
They definitely benefit the most, but I don't think it just takes away from anything. They still got to play those teams.
But teams did to Vancouver like Vancouver did to Ottawa. Like it's just not. It doesn't compute.
No, not even close. Not even close.
Yeah.
So in saying that, this fan base is going to lose its mind if this continues. Like they just can't keep going like this because Canucks fans go insane. If they don't do good in this series versus Calgary, do you see something changing, like management or coach? Like, is something going to happen like an earthquake?
I think if they lose like these like 6-1 games and 7-1 games, all bets are off because then you're firing guys to just like put them out of their misery kind of thing. But let's say I think decisions get made this week though. I don't know if action happens because we're in a pandemic, and are you going to do a big interview process and bring in 16 different guys like Pittsburgh's doing? And like, I think decisions get made. I think the decision's already been made on Jim Benning. I think he's not the guy going forward, but it doesn't mean they're, I think so. That's not inside information. I just think that like, what are we doing here anymore? And you got a big off season ahead, 23 million's off the books. You got to negotiate the contracts with Hughes or Pedersen. Is Jim Benning going to be the guy that you let do all that? Now, I'm not like fire Benning today. I whatever. But I think that if the season ends this week in terms of like, hey, we're not making playoffs, then you're just like, how can we make this season not a disaster? And I think the decision gets made. All right, going forward, Benning's not going to be the guy. But I'd be surprised if they like announce that in the middle of the week.
Oh, okay. So you think that like they'll make the decision, but they're not going to announce anything. Basically, they'll just keep going with it.
I would guess that. I would guess they would just ride this thing out, and I don't think Travis Green gets fired. I think they only fire Travis Green if things get so embarrassing. Like I'm not talking about the loss to Toronto the other night. I'm talking about those games where you're like, this isn't even NHL hockey. This is crazy.
Well, none of it looks like NHL hockey besides those first 40 minutes versus Toronto. Like, I don't know what more really you need to see to, like, in my opinion, like, I don't know what happened to that bubble team. I don't even think that it was Markstrom saving our bacon. I think Green actually did well, but I don't know what's going on. And this is just not acceptable.
Well, the series, both series against Montreal and then the first 2 games against Toronto those weren't losses. That they were embarrassments. Like you got killed. Fans are turning off the TV in the third period. Like it wasn't even competitive. Guys were quitting, right? That's how you get coaches fired.
Yeah.
So my question would be, is this Green's team in the future? I know you said you don't think it's Benning's, but do you think even maybe beyond this season?
I like Travis Green. I think he's a good coach. I don't know if he's lost his room. right? That's not up for me to decide.
Mhm.
I think good coaches get fired all the time, and then good coaches go on to coach other good teams and have success. I like Travis Green. I want him to be the guy here. If they fire Jim Benning, new GM comes in, then he has to make the decision on the coach. 9 times out of 10, they're bringing in his own guy. Travis Green didn't get a contract extension this year, which was kind of stupid, but all of a sudden he's lame duck. So, I mean, Travis Green is, listen, he is, what's the word? He is, he's the, I want to say in danger, but he is,
hot seat.
yeah, he's, man, I'm good with words. I can't even think of it. I don't want to even say he's in trouble. He's at risk for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pro sports. That's pro sports.
Well, one thing I'll say is his post-game conference Saturday night versus Leafs. I don't mean to keep going back to him. It's just I've never heard a coach sound so out of answers, and like his voice was quivering. Like it sounded like he thought something was going to happen with his job. Almost, it did. It did.
Oh, what word did I use off the top? You asked me to describe the Canucks. I said helpless, and I'm sure that's how he feels. Yeah. I'm sure he's out of answers.
Yeah.
You know, and at least like look at the straws we're grasping on too.
Mm-hmm.
Like they played a really 2 good periods and outshot the Leafs 27-7. You have to use that to build on. But again, it all comes down to this week.
Yeah.
If we see a team that competes and wins a couple games, I don't think they're going to make playoffs. But if we see a team that competes and wins a couple games and has like good games against Calgary, and then we can all feel better about this team. And if they just get their doors blown off, just all bets are off, you know?
Yeah. Can't wait till Markstrom gets 3 shutouts in 4 games versus us.
Could happen, man. Not impossible.
Yeah.
Louis Domingue might get a shutout.
I thought he was there. Yeah, you're right.
Well, I don't know. I'm not so much a Travis Green guy. I never really had known much about him.
Vulnerable is the word I was
there you go.
For.
That's a good
God
one.
Damn it.
He's vulnerable right now?
Vulnerable,
He's vulnerable. He's showing vulnerability.
Yeah.
100%.
It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. Fair enough.
But yeah, I don't know. Just to me, like you said, this week is going to say a lot because for me, I understand, like we said, the decisions that Benning has made, it's all hindsight's 2020. But when you see the lineup not able to execute even on a daily basis or even like per period basis, that's where I start to look at who's the leader in the locker room. There's no one really stepping up right now. Those guys are not seeming to hold their own. And then that's where a coach needs to be the presence. And if maybe, like you say, for someone, you know, he might have lost the locker room and that's reality, but you know, you got to get a way to motivate those guys to be able to play. That's just all and I haven't been able to see that except for that 40 minutes. And that's why it's just been like, you know, give him 2 or 3 more young players that are going to look good and 1 more free agency. It's like, does this team look that much different? Even though I guess now I'm thinking in my head, well, I did see them play a whole lot differently in that playoff series. So am I just seeing the low for the low and not really giving it fair game?
I mean, it's been really bad. I'll go to the grave, like saying that I know people, you know, lost some key players here, but this team and you know, they're 17 guys deep on the ice or 19 guys deep on the ice. This team is not that different from the team that almost got to the conference finals, right? They swapped Schmidt for Tanev, and you can prefer Tanev if you want. That's fine, but Schmidt's a good hockey player. Like no matter what, you swapped Markstrom for Demko and Holtby. Sure, downgrade. Sure, is that going from NHL to AHL goaltending? No. And then you know you lost Troy Stetcher, you lost Levo, I guess. You lost to Foley, but you had him for like 6 games. Like, you know, he wasn't the key to the team. He's a good player. The issue is not that like, oh, we took Tyler Foley out of our lineup. The issue is that he's killing them on another team. That's the issue. Anyway, you can say, hey, this team isn't as good. That's fine. But I don't think it's a heck of a lot different. Right? This is not night and day. So I'll go to the grave thinking like this team is like they have to be better than how they're playing. Because they're playing like a team that wants first overall. And that's like, it's ridiculous.
What I will say is I noticed last year a lot of the games we relied on Markstrom like crazy, and no one can tell me otherwise. It's just not true. Like he saved our bacon so many games.
Yep, he did.
And this year we don't have him, and that's almost exposing just the coaching staff in general on a failure to coach this team how to play proper defense. And I'm not saying it's all the team. It's due to lack of practice and a couple new faces on the team, but like it's kind of exposing something pretty big there, not having Markstrom. You know.
He covered up a lot of stuff for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, that's what great goaltenders do on good teams. Like I don't think you should have to apologize for that. We've always said, they need to tighten up more. They need to whatever. But like he saved them against St. Louis, but they were also great versus St. Louis.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like both things can be true. He was their MVP last year for sure. And that's part of it. Right. Like, I think if you parachute Markstrom in right now, are these like 6-2 losses turning into 4-3 wins? I don't think so.
No, it wouldn't be that bad, but it would be a huge difference. The losses.
They need more saves for sure.
Yeah, they're not getting the big saves right now. They just simply aren't. I'm not saying Holtby's a bad goalie, but they're not like yesterday versus Toronto in that third period. We needed a big save and we didn't get one.
Yeah. That could have been a game that Holtby, now they didn't score a second goal, but that could have been a game that Holtby won for sure.
Yep.
That's always been, that was my thing. Is like, yeah, well, at the end of the day, if you get that save, okay, it's 6-1 instead of 7-1, you still need to score a couple more to really rely on that aspect and say
it's hard, man.
You need the big save. Like
everything's hard to analyze about this team right now because you can't point your finger at one guy. Like everyone's been bad. And if the defensemen are bad, then the goaltender's out to dry. If the goalie's bad, he makes the defense look worse. If the forwards don't back check and don't score, then how are the defense supposed to play? Like you win as a team, you lose as a team. And right now everyone's bad. I've
been seeing this in a long time, and I've been watching the team for, let's say, 18 years, something like that. I'm 25, so it's been rough. I've never seen this before, honestly.
It has been a rough stretch, man. I've covered 4 NHL teams, and I've seen bad teams before. I've seen a lot of bad teams before. I've never seen a team that I think is pretty good play this poorly.
Really?
Yeah, ever.
Wow.
I've seen bad teams play bad.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a team that I thought was like decent.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not unbelievable, but decent.
Yeah.
Play this poorly ever.
It's hard to watch and analyze. You just can't.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Like last night they lost in Toronto 3-1, as you said, and it almost felt like a win.
Yeah.
Like thank God we weren't embarrassed by the Leafs.
Moral victory. Tortorella era.
I'm with
Willie Desjardins era, actually. I was Willie Desjardins, I think. Austin, was there anything you wanted to add here? Because I think we're gonna have it pretty soon.
No, I mean, yeah. It felt like a win. I got too many Leaf fan friends that
I know.
That felt like a win.
That's the worst. That's the worst part. Me too.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. No, we're over that moral victory crap. I've had enough of it.
Yeah. Bring back Ottawa.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
The good old days.
Only 10 wins of the year right there. No, just kidding. All right. Well, I think that's probably it, Andrew. We've had a long day. So again, just really wanted to thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And I guess the next 4 games will tell a lot, and I'm looking forward to them. But try not to lose my mind here. That's all I can say.
Yeah, no problem, boys. Don't stop cheering, and it'll get better. Can't get worse.
Yeah, later.
100%. Thanks again, brother.
See you, boys.
Thank you. Later.
Take care.